that the experiments uncovered was that people who had time to stop and reflect, people who had time to pause and think, were less likely to obey the unethical orders. But people who felt rushed or pressured or harassed or harried were more likely to obey the unethical orders. And again, I think that fits very well with the experiment in Princeton. That is, if we don't have time to stop and recollect and pull ourselves together and be centered and to think about the things that are most important, it's less likely that we're going to live according to our values. And this is really relevant to our context today because we live in a culture that does not encourage us to stop. We live in a culture that talks about 24/7, going around the clock every day for 7 days a week. We live in a culture that talks about doing many things at once, multitasking. We live in a culture that says that multitasking is a great value. We live in a culture that has eliminated pauses and breaks. So, you know, in our lifetime, we have seen the disappearance of the seventh day, essentially, in our culture. But breaks and pauses are also disappearing from the workplace. People don't take coffee breaks. Less and less do they take coffee breaks. People often eat meals at their desks, so they don't even take meals or don't even take breaks for meals. The only people now in our culture who consistently take breaks are smokers. I said this at a retreat once, and a young woman said, you know, I noticed that, so I started buying candy cigarettes so I could go outside and stand with the smokers and have a break. So we live in a culture that has eliminated breaks and eliminated the value of breaks. And what I worry about is when that happens, we get swept along with agenda and priorities and purposes that might not be our own agenda, priorities, and purposes if we really stop and think about it. Does it make sense? All right. That's enough ideas to throw at you for a few minutes. I think, why don't you take a few minutes and talk together at your tables about what I've said before, and ask yourself 3 questions, okay? So the first question is there something that you heard that you agree with? Always nice to start off with an affirmation. Something that you agree with. The second question would be, what questions do I have? What issues do I have? Where do I disagree? Where would I push back? So disagreements, questions, clarifications. And the third one would be, what is one thing I want to remember well? Okay? So agreements, questions, clarifications, one thing you want to remember well. Okay? So let's do that for a few minutes at our table.